Hi there, it's me, Mr. Olsen, and today we're going to be discussing a very special report released by UNESCO called Reimagining Our Futures Together, a new social contract for education. This is a report from the International Commission on the Futures of Education. So we are in the education kind of academic world, and what we're going to be looking at is how can we ground this in our everyday experience? How can we compare it to our current day education situation? And especially, how does it relate to homeschooling? So let's have a quick look at what we are going to be looking at. So first thing we're going to do is look at who is UNESCO. Should we listen to them? Maybe you'll see. Why does this report even exist? What's a social contract? And what does it have to do with education? We're going to see if we can get past the buzzwords and the highfalutin academic language and see if we can ground it in some real situations and some real anecdotal situations, if you will. And then we're going to ask ourselves, so what? What should we do about it? What should we consider, if anything, if you have decided that you do trust it? Okay, so first things first, who is UNESCO? Well, UNESCO is the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. And so they focus on those three main things. Now, the big thing about the United Nations, and obviously UNESCO consequently, is that they are all about academics. They see the role of academics, of conversation, of diplomacy being essential for future change. Now, the extent of the success of this model is up for debate, I suppose, but we know that education is largely academic by nature, so maybe they have something here. This was a great quote that I liked from this paper. It says, "Since wars begin in the minds of men and women, it is in the minds of men and women that the defenses of peace must be constructed." Because, of course, the United Nations are all about peace. So the defenses of peace must be constructed in our minds. Do wars really begin in the minds of men and women, or is it in the heart, or is that just semantics? That's up to you to decide. Either way, they've got a lot of really smart people who managed to look at a whole lot of data to help bring us into some new thinking with regards to education, teaching, and our role in it as we try to have a great future for our children and our learners. So why does it exist, and really how did they do it before we speak about why? So researchers took about 2 years and they got over 1 million or about 1 million data points. So that'll be individuals, governments, organizations. You can put schools in there, universities in there. They conducted a whole lot of research. And I mean, this entire paper is about 168 pages. So I'm just going to be pulling out one or two little bits of this. What's nice is they also do have an executive summary. So I'm going to be trying to read through that whole thing, but the summary is going to help us out in our thinking for now, because this isn't the definitive point on any of this. I just want to start the discussion. I love talking about this stuff, and I hope you do too. Let's see where we can really go with it. Okay, so they see that we haven't been able to make good on the promise to ensure the right to education. We know that education is a basic human right, and that it has been unfulfilled. How can what they'll call a new social contract help to better fulfill this right? That education is a route for sustainable collective futures. So the big idea, the big dream is that there would be sustainable and equal education for everyone all around the world. There would be the same quality, the same value that would help people live happy lives, meaningful lives. And they see correctly that education brings about change. What teachers are doing in classrooms, or parents are doing at home, or kids are doing out of both of those contexts, that shapes the future, which of course is going to shape technology and all of those important elements. So what is a social contract? If we think about social contracts, really social, so with people, contract, something that we all agree on, we've got a lot of everyday examples of that, from trading with money, me saying, hey, I'll give you this if you give me that, and we have a shared contract enforced by law, sure, but still a social contract. In the same way, driving on the road and us most of the time obeying the rules of the road, seeing that as a social contract, a way for us to look out for each other. Humans love social contracts, especially when it benefits everyone. And so I think that's why they would put this, I don't want to say label, but why they use this paradigm or this kind of framework to frame the importance of education, because they say that we need a new social contract for education to repair injustices while transforming the future. They say this new social contract should be in bettering education, in making it more meaningful, in making it decolonized, if we want to use one of those very popular terms and an important one in South Africa and throughout the world, really. And how can we have education serve a meaningful role in the community where it comes from? We need a new social contract for that, because that's not happening at the moment. It's lying on the shoulders of one or a handful of teachers, and then that's it. They must just kind of cookie cutter factory or sausage factory kids and products out of educated. But goes much more. And I think that's where this paper is really interesting, in that it wants to solve that. So it wants to repair past injustices like colonization and transform the future. They really address this nicely when they speak about how uncertain the future really is. We have no cooking clue about the future that our children are going to grow up in. We don't know what kind of work there will be. If you tried to explain the job of a YouTuber who plays Mario games for his living, if you told someone that would happen like 50 years ago, of course we wouldn't believe it. What's it going to look like in 10 years, 20 years? What is work going to look like? What is education going to look like? And if we use education in the right way, this paper and we say, then it's going to improve the lives and transform the futures to make it better. We hope that it will make it better. Now, of course, this is very idealistic, and the United Nations are all about being idealistic. And once again, that's something that you've got to decide. Is it helpful to be that level of idealistic? I believe it's a lot better to look at the human condition of our hearts, that we naturally are prone to do the wrong thing over the right thing, and we can educate out from that, from being imperfect, but wanting to find out more about this phenomenal created world. So, coming back to UNESCO's reports, they say that education should, and that they would, if they have their way, it will help build a peaceful, just, and sustainable future for all. So let's go past some of these buzzwords, the decolonization. If we just look at these images, which came with the template for this presentation, so why not use them? Which one looks like the best education situation? Is it hands up in class, a smiling teacher? Is it helping learners in a workbook while they sit next to each other? Is it at university? Is it with boys and girls mixing in the same class? Is it away far? Is it close? Of course, all of this has changed as we go along the way. And really, what we've got to figure out is, where should this happen first? And then how should it happen? And do both of those point towards this new social contract where we are all agreeing on how important education is, especially in our communities, and to make it meaningful, applicable, and done in such a way that you can prepare for an uncertain future? Does that happen best in homes? Does it happen best in classrooms? Does it happen best with books? Does it happen best with climbing a tree and licking some bark? I don't think the last one. Maybe part of it. Maybe if it's an experiment. Either way, we've got to think about, on the ground, how does this look? And that still says, write your topic or idea, and I'm just going to ignore it. So here comes a cool quote from this report, which says, the increased demand for education has seen the one room, teacher up front talking to a group of 25, 30, 40, 45, and the number's just going to keep on increasing, especially in South Africa. So this has seen the one room model scaled to produce schools, and it's divided into age groups assigned to different classrooms. However, this expanded egg crate model of schooling did not reimagine the role of teachers, who remained individually responsible for their own lesson plans, materials, rarely interacted, kind of left out on their own, just get the job done. This model places increasingly unsustainable pressure on teachers. So if you're an educator, if you've been in mainstream schooling, if your kids are in mainstream schooling and you look at teachers, a lot of the time they're tired, they're burnt out, they're struggling because, well, the ones who don't have extra support, they are struggling the most. Now and this is where they reimagine that social contract. There are a lot of them who are in these teams, and they speak a lot about teams with the community and with others. As we speak about teams, doesn't that sound a little bit like communities coming together? I mean, that's really a lot of what they're pointing towards. And should that be in a homeschool context, in families getting to know each other, in towns getting to know each other, and then being able to collaborate with families across great distances? Is that sustainable? Okay, another cool quote. I know I'm quoting from them a lot, but they got a lot of cool quotes. And if there are a lot of cool quotes, then you should quote those cool quotes. Teaching is not about an individual leading as students through activities or lessons behind a closed classroom door. And this is where something like the unschooling philosophy, and I still don't like the term unschooling. I think it was fun and novel when it first came out because it linked with some advert of some kind, but it seems quite antagonistic and very I'm right and you're wrong, and maybe there are elements of that, but we need to hear each other out in this. If we want our children to have that better education, then we're going to need to link up, be more community-minded in this and supportive with each other, not feeling like we're attacking each other. And I think that happens more often than not when we do want to address an issue in the broader context of homeschooling, unschooling, community schooling, mainstream schooling, whatever you want to call those. And really, that's where I want to land this just a little bit. Having heard that all of this pretty good research, although a million in perspective, when there are millions upon millions, billions of children going through the school system, very similar in many ways, but very different in others, in different contexts. What could that look like? Should it be different from one country to another? Should it be different from one community to another? The important thing I think that we can really take away from this, and that I am, and what I'm thinking the most of, is how can I help my children and those I teach to interact better with the community so they can see real life education, the skills that come about, the knowledge that you'd want to know in order to be able to do something. Maybe that's where you land, maybe that's where you don't. I'm keen to hear what you have to say. Let's chat about it. Thank you, and bye for now.